high and mighty, the Duke's youngest daughter. Yet she was brought to a banquet hall by slave traders to be auctioned off as a commodity. And all this was because 7 years ago, her mother unfortunately passed away. Her father, due to someone else's scheme, also left the ducal estate. Thus, he left his daughter, still in her infancy, in the care of his sworn brother. And in that man's house, her life was carefree at first. But one day, news of the Duke's death arrived. The young girl was then sent to the servants' quarters. The heavy work left her with no rest. She was also beaten and kicked for their amusement. To survive, the girl escaped from the terrifying estate, but due to her small size, she was caught and brought back. A brutal beating followed, knocking her unconscious. And when she woke up, she was already in a prison where slave traders kept their captives. Looking at the girl on the stage, the crowd below had lost all reason. The hall was filled with shrill shouts, all wanting to buy the girl to take home and abuse her at will. The girl's body trembled, small and helpless. Just then, a bid of 1 million was heard. The noisy hall fell silent in an instant. As if to make sure, the man added another 4 million. The auctioneer couldn't contain his joy and immediately sold the girl to the man before him. The girl's face showed fear, not understanding why a 7-year-old like herself was worth such a large sum to this man. A moment later, a staff member brought the girl to the man, smiling and wishing him a good time. At this moment, the girl could only use silence to hide her inner fear. But the man knelt down directly, holding her arm. "Don't move, or you might get hurt." Then he began to heal the girl's severely injured body. The girl was very surprised by this. First, Simond was to be responsible for taking care of Duke Henriette's 4th child and ensuring her safety. In return, the Winsgrave family will provide support to the Simond family. Just then, a loud explosion was heard from outside the window, making the girl look out in a panic. But the man was very calm. "Second, you must treat my 4th child with sincerity. The last rule, until I come for my daughter, she must take good care of my child." And the man was none other than the girl's father, Duke Henriette. The girl stared blankly at the unfamiliar father before her. And although Henriette's face was calm, his heart was already filled with rage. "This was the 3-point agreement I made with Count Simond when I entrusted you to him 7 years ago. I will make everyone who caused you to end up in this place pay the price." Saying this, he pushed the door open and walked out. Outside, blood-stained knights stood in neat rows, paying their respects to him. The man calmly ordered them to burn the dead to ashes. As he was about to leave, he noticed a problem. The girl was standing there in a daze and hadn't followed him. Realizing this, the girl suddenly snapped out of it and ran towards her father. Upon arriving at the Winsgrave ducal estate, the man was telling the girl about the affairs of the ducal household, but he overlooked the fact that his daughter's gaze towards him was completely unfamiliar. Her small body seemed so tiny and helpless, afraid of angering her father. Seeing this, the Duke, having no experience with children, didn't know how to comfort his daughter. So he ordered the servants nearby to wash the girl and give her something to eat. Then he got up and left his seat. He was preparing to clean up the mess that had been made during his absence all at once. Before leaving, he looked at his daughter, hoping that when he returned, she would be able to greet him with a brand new look. With that, he closed the door and walked out. The nervous girl collapsed on the sofa, terrified. Luckily, she hadn't made any mistakes just now. Then she looked out the window at the scenery, lost in thought. But a moment later, the bustling estate was filled with voices searching for the girl. The girl was hiding nearby, watching the servants. Her heart was filled with bitterness. This was because back at Count Simond's estate, she was beaten and kicked by the servants every day, leaving her with psychological trauma. The girl looked at her trembling arms, then hugged her head, terrified, but her stomach growled betrayingly. The maid outside immediately found her. The slap the little girl feared never came. Instead, the servant looked at the child before her, at a loss. To put her at ease, she could only start listing dishes. If you don't come out soon, the creamy melon, fruit-infused green tea, and the mussels and overalls we prepared will get cold. And we also plan to have chocolate-covered melons and wasabi-flavored flowers for afternoon tea. The little girl was instantly tempted. The sound of her gulping was especially clear in the large living room. Then she peeked her little head out, explaining that she didn't dislike the 3 of them. She was just very scared. Seeing the adorable little girl, the servants looked at her with delight. Then one reached out a hand, ready to take her to eat something. But this made the little girl flinch. It brought back bad memories. After all, the maids at the Count's mansion always called her dirty and awful. The little girl was afraid they would hate her too. Touching her hair, she looked at the ground. "I smell right now." This left the servants standing in stunned silence. Then one of them took the little girl's arm. gently comforting her. "You've been wandering outside? It's only natural that you have a smell." The servant's words warmed the little girl. She temporarily let go of her fear. When the maid offered to help her wash up, the little girl immediately agreed. Lying in the warm bath, she felt that the people in the Wind's Grave ducal estate were completely different from those at the Seamont estate. Just now, the servants had wanted to help her bathe, but the little girl, independent from a young age, immediately refused the three of them. And when the maid walked into the bathroom, her eyes widened in shock at the scene before her, in disbelief. The little girl had actually cleaned the entire bathroom. Before the little girl could say anything, the scars covering her body were the best answer. This made the servants' hearts ache, and they didn't know what to say. One of the maids hurriedly grabbed a piece of clothing and had the little girl put it on. After she finished washing and sat in front of the mirror, the little girl felt very unaccustomed to having so many people surrounding her and making her tiny self so beautiful. She was suddenly filled with self-doubt, but the food in front of her made her let her guard down. The little girl, who had never seen so much exquisite food, picked up a piece and ate it. A happy smile appeared on her face. When night fell, the little girl lay on the soft, large bed, recalling the day's events. The unreal feeling made her afraid that she would wake up to find herself living under someone else's roof again. If this was a dream, then she would rather never wake up. When the next day came, the morning sun shone its charm freely. The little girl rubbed her sleepy eyes. The maid came to find her, ready to show her around the ducal estate. Looking at the portraits of her mother and three brothers on the wall, whom she had never met, a feeling of strangeness and familiarity washed over her. Just as the little girl was lost in thought, the maid noticed the sadness on her face. "What are you thinking about so seriously?" Her thoughts interrupted. The girl, not wanting her to notice something was wrong, quickly changed the subject. She asked if the children in the painting were her brothers. Seeing this, the maid didn't press the matter. "Yes, the eldest young master is currently on an expedition to fight evil spirits. The second young master is studying at the Royal Academy. And the youngest young master, because he obtained a rather special ability during his awakening ceremony, has gone to receive guidance on how to control his divine power." After hearing this, the little girl understood her brother's whereabouts. Just as the two were talking about matters related to the Duke, the little girl was about to ask the maid to take her to her father. Just then, the butler arrived. "So you are here. Miss, the master has returned. But the master is not in a good mood right now, so it's best not to disturb him." The little girl could only deciding not to go out to play today. After all, the maid had just said that her father, by his own power, had executed hundreds of nobles, upholding the authority and influence of the royal family. But as the Duke's power grew, even the suppressed emperor became dissatisfied with him. The little girl thought back to what the maid had just said, but in order to understand her father better, she decided to go out and find out more about him. But as she walked through the empty estate, she didn't know where to go. Looking at the unfamiliar surroundings, the little girl anxiously wanted to go back, but was caught in an illusion. In her panic, she pushed open a closed door. Looking at the refined potions on the table, the little girl walked forward in a daze. But the next second, a gust of cold wind blew. A ghost-like servant was floating in midair. "Miss, you cannot enter here casually." The little girl's face instantly filled with fear, and she ran out in a panic. She came to a large garden, staring blankly at her surroundings. "Where is this? Wasn't the door it just opened supposed to lead to the hallway?" Just then, the little girl saw a glass house nearby. It caught her attention, and she let out a gasp of admiration. And a lake suddenly appeared on the empty ground nearby. The little girl was completely baffled by this, but couldn't resist her curiosity and quietly walked forward. She stared blankly at her reflection in the lake. But the next second, countless arms suddenly reached out from the water, pulling the little girl into the lake. Faced with such a crisis, can the little girl escape? To think there was a group of ghosts in the estate. The young girl hurriedly tried to escape, but was dragged into the water by something sinister. Just as she was about to suffocate and die, a figure jumped into the water with a splash and pulled the girl out in time. The girl, having survived the ordeal, was terrified. She didn't understand what she had just encountered, and the next second, a hand was suddenly placed on her shoulder. "Are you okay? Didn't anyone tell you not to come here?" The person was a young boy. In response to his concern, The girl thought he was the sinister thing from the water and burst into tears with a wail. This left the boy completely speechless, not knowing how to comfort the girl. "Look, I didn't do anything. I was just trying to save you. So please stop crying." Hearing this, the girl immediately covered her mouth, knowing she had wronged him. The boy didn't blame her for her rudeness and then used magic to calm her heart. "Finally, you stopped crying. It's nice to meet you." The girl looked at his sleeves, soaked from saving her, and suddenly felt that he was quite a nice person. I'm happy to meet you too." But seeing the boy's smiling face, she just returned the greeting, wondering why he was so happy. The girl still expressed her gratitude to him, very curious about his identity. But the boy didn't answer her question, only asking the lost girl if she needed him to lead her out. Just as the girl agreed, the boy reached out and took her hand. Feeling the boy's hands were ice cold, the girl was very surprised. After all, she was the one who had just fallen into the water. After passing through a dense forest, the next second they arrived at the ducal estate. The girl's face was full of disbelief. She was amazed to find that there was no trace of her clothes being wet. Her hair was as if she had just used a hairdryer, as if she had never fallen into the water at all. But the boy didn't answer her doubts, only asking her to keep it a secret and not tell anyone she had seen him. Then he disappeared. The baffled girl immediately looked left and right, thinking she had encountered another sinister thing. She hurriedly prepared to return to her room. When she opened the door, she found that this was not her own territory, terrified and not knowing where she was. But the next second, a voice was heard, instantly causing the girl's expression to turn to one of fear. Nowadays, it seems even any cat or dog dares to openly provoke me. The girl recognized the speaker as her father. Tense, she stood frozen. In his terrifying gaze, the Duke drew his sword, immobilizing the girl's body. Then he slowly walked towards her. The feeling of suffocation terrified the girl. Seeing that the Duke was about to execute her, the girl fell to the ground in fear. The sound of her crying instantly filled the quiet room. At this moment, the Duke also reached the girl. As soon as he saw clearly that it was his own daughter, the Duke immediately sensed something was wrong. "Why are you here?" The girl's body trembled uncontrollably. She forced herself to remain calm. I'm sorry. I accidentally went into the wrong room. I'm sorry. I was wrong." Looking at the girl kneeling on the ground, he frowned deeply, then sighed heavily. "I thought an assassin had slipped into the estate. I didn't expect it to be just a little mouse. I was planning to chop off the assassin's limbs this time." Hearing her father's cruel words, the girl was speechless, not knowing how to respond. But the Duke's expression then became incredibly grim, not understanding what the girl had done wrong at Count Simon's house to be so submissive. The girl, however, didn't know what he was talking about and looked at her father with concern. But he didn't continue to question her. He pointed to a chair nearby, telling her to sit on it. "During your time living at Count Simon's estate, what did you learn?" Seeing that her father was curious about what she had learned. Although the girl was hesitant, she still spoke cautiously. "I can read and write some simple words." Seeing that her father was not surprised, the girl was afraid of angering him. "I also know basic calculations." The Duke was speechless, not knowing what to say. After a long silence, he slowly spoke. "Is that all?" Seeing her father's face grow darker, the girl was terrified that he would abandon her again. "I have a good memory. I remember almost everyone who visited Count Simon's estate, and I'm also very good at running errands. I'm very good at cleaning and doing laundry." As she spoke, the girl started to lose confidence. After all, these were all simple things, certainly not enough to satisfy her father. And the Duke, seeing the girl fall silent, didn't press his daughter any further. He just pointed to the books nearby, asking his daughter if she had any literary background. The girl's face instantly turned bright red, and she stammered that she had no such thing. The Duke patiently asked again if she had learned any musical instruments. But the little girl didn't know what that was, thinking it was a book. The Duke sighed again. Looking at his daughter before him, he fell silent, not knowing how to continue the questioning. As late night approached, the girl slowly closed her eyes, about to fall to the ground. The next second, her skirt floated up gently, and the girl was startled awake. It was her father who had lifted her up. They looked at each other, speechless. Then the Duke carried the girl over to the bed and threw her onto it with a thud. "You can sleep here for tonight." The girl looked at him in surprise at her father's sudden words. But lying on the soft bed, the girl, who had intended to go back to her own room, blinked her eyes and fell into a deep sleep. And her hair ornament was gently removed by the Duke, afraid of disturbing his daughter. Then he took the girl's hand in his, looking at her with a face full of guilt. All his tenderness and care were given to his daughter. When his daughter fell into a dream, he thoughtfully removed her hair ornament, afraid of disturbing her sleep. Then he took the girl's hand in his. The man's face was filled with guilt. With a sudden slash, the sleeping girl was startled awake, followed by a boundless darkness. The next second, an arm suddenly reached out from the darkness, discovering the girl. At this critical moment, a long sword pierced the evil spirit's body as bright red blood flowed out. The girl suddenly woke up, looking left and right, not knowing where she was. She found her father looking at her and was instantly startled. Then she remembered what happened yesterday. She watched in panic as her father approached. "Hold out your arm." While the girl was still baffled, the Duke had already taken her small hand in his. Then he used his magic. A sacred light instantly enveloped the girl's body. This estate is protected by magic. People without a registered mark will not be able to find the correct path if they wander around the house. Listening to her father's explanation, the girl also understood why she had gotten lost in the ducal estate yesterday. "By the way, this is my room. It's in the right corridor on the 3rd floor, the opposite of where your room is." But the girl misunderstood her father, thinking he was warning her. She politely thanked her father for taking her in. Then she sadly left this place of trouble. When she saw the maid ahead, the girl immediately ran over. The servant immediately expressed her concern for the girl's appearance and apologized for not informing her about the magic in the estate sooner. The girl immediately said that she was the one who should apologize, blaming herself for running out without a word. Then she held out her arm, showing that she had already received the estate's mark, telling them not to worry. The three of them were incredibly surprised to hear this. After all, her brothers were only granted the mark when they were over 10 years old. They thought the Duke truly doted on the girl. Mentioning her father, the girl's face turned pale. If his cold demeanor was called doting, how terrifying would he be when he wasn't doting? Then she shook her little head and asked the maid to take her to wash up. The servant agreed. The four of them chatted and laughed as they prepared to go home. Just as the clear sky shone upon the earth, the girl was called to her father's room, who asked her to attend a family meeting with him. As soon as she entered the meeting room, the girl's body became extremely stiff. Her heart was even more nervous, wanting to escape. The noisy hall was filled with people discussing the girl, not understanding why she was here. Seeing his daughter, so nervous her toes were curling, the Duke understood she was under a lot of pressure. He immediately told everyone to be quiet and then began today's meeting. The girl at the side, seeing that they were no longer paying attention to her, silently clenched her fists to cheer herself on. But the next second, while the girl was listening intently, her stomach rumbled. The discussing crowd fell silent in an instant. The girl felt so awkward she wished the ground would swallow her whole. But the people around her didn't seem to mind, just looking at the girl with smiles on their faces. The Duke, however, looked surprised. After all, he never thought his daughter would be hungry in such a situation. But he still ordered a servant nearby to bring some food. He specifically added that it should be the kind for children. But the girl hesitated to move. After all, with everyone watching her, how could she possibly eat? The Duke, as the head of the family, hadn't considered this. Under the girl's surprised gaze, he picked up the strawberries from the table. He picked one up and put it in his mouth. "There's no poison. It's very safe. Go ahead and eat." This thoughtful gesture immediately soothed the girl's heart. Faced with her sincere father, the girl no longer felt self-conscious about the people around her. She started eating with relish. When the meeting ended, the girl was full of surprise. The servants at the side were also chattering about the scene before them. The Duke put down the food and told his daughter to eat quickly. Although she didn't know why her father had changed his mind, the girl knew she had misunderstood him. Watching his daughter eat, the Duke just quietly watched the girl. When she contentedly said she couldn't eat anymore, the Duke picked up a piece of fruit from the side, telling her to eat some more melon. The noble lady, due to her father being framed, was fostered in the Count's home. But her life thereafter was not pleasant. The young girl not only had to take care of the Count's family's daily needs, but also had to test their jewelry for them to see if there was anything deadly inside. And the Count's estate was not short of gold coins to hire servants. They were purely enjoying the pleasure of trampling the Duke's daughter under their feet. After the Duke brought her home from the auction, she habitually waited for others to finish eating. Only then did she start to eat the snacks in front of her. The Duke, unaware of the girl's ordeal, was surprised, thinking she was just not used to the unfamiliar surroundings. He prepared to take her to see her own domain to relax. Although she didn't know, when she got her own exclusive area, the little girl didn't dare to defy his order and agreed to her father's request. When late night came, the little girl lying in bed was too excited to sleep. After all, she had never been outside to see the world since she was little, and the servants, who had been busy all day, were just about to rest when the Duke walked towards them. The servants immediately became flustered. "Master, the young miss has just gone to bed. We were also about to leave." But the Duke was not there to see his daughter. "Follow me. I have something for you to do." The next day, the clear sky shone upon the earth. The little girl looked at the beautiful surroundings in amazement, letting out words of admiration. Seeing his daughter's happiness, the Duke no longer made her follow him, telling his daughter to go and release her natural instincts. This instantly made the little girl overjoyed. She pulled the maid's hand and ran forward. The Duke silently watched his daughter leave, hoping she would like the things he had arranged. And the little girl, after leaving her father, had a constant smile on her face. One moment she was admiring the beauty of the butterflies, the next she was leisurely looking at the surroundings where it was like spring all year round. After all, it was her father who had used expensive magic to make this place so comfortable and peaceful. Just then, an old man led a small pony over, saying it could play with the little girl. The little girl immediately agreed. As soon as she sat on the horse's back, the little girl felt so happy she could fly. After she finished playing and got off the horse, she saw a puppy nearby and looked at it with a pleasant surprise. The fluffy little dog licked the little girl, and she immediately responded by hugging it. The servants nearby also smiled as they watched the two of them. While the little girl and the puppy were playing happily in the kennel, it was unknowingly time to eat. Looking at the exquisite snacks, the little girl discovered something incredible. A plate of dark cookies was emitting a terrifying aura. The little girl picked one up, very confused. After all, the chefs at the ducal estate shouldn't have such terrible cooking skills. Just then, a servant leaned in and whispered in the girl's ear, whispering to the young miss, "Young miss, the master made this for you himself." It turned out that after finishing his work, the Duke had found the servants, wanted to learn how to make simple food, righteously stating that the little girl would only eat what he gave her. The little girl was baffled by the Duke's strange logic. Then she looked at her father sitting nearby, but she still picked up a cookie and ate it to respond to her father's care for her. After one bite, her face instantly turned pale, but she forced herself to suppress the urge to vomit. "It's really delicious." To prevent her father from eating the dark concoction he made, the little girl picked up a cookie and handed it to her father. "You should eat something too. This is also very delicious." Looking at the food his daughter handed him, the Duke remembered his eldest son looking down on him, his second son always hiding from him, and his third son crying his eyes out whenever he saw him. Looking at his daughter before him, he suddenly felt that his daughter was actually quite nice. When the little girl and the others were ready to go home after a day of playing, the Duke, in order to improve his relationship with his daughter, first asked her if she liked her domain. The girl immediately replied happily, "I like it. I like it very much. The fruits, they are both tempting and delicious, and the scenery in the orchard is also super beautiful, just like the glass greenhouse." Hearing this, the Duke was very surprised. "You've been to the glass greenhouse?" The little girl instantly didn't know how to answer her father, but she still spoke hesitantly. I got lost before I got the mark, so I accidentally went in. Is it a place I'm not supposed to go?" But the Duke said it didn't matter, but it was best not to go alone, because there was a group of dangerous evil spirits deep in the greenhouse. The little girl stood there in a daze, not understanding how she was able to walk right in, and was saved from the lake by a mysterious boy. The ghosts in the ducal estate wouldn't harm the little girl, but she was still very scared, hugging her little head in terror, preparing to escape from this home. Just now, the little girl who had returned home was preparing to draw a picture for her father, but the young girl's drawing skills were very poor. In order to create a satisfactory work, the little girl suddenly remembered the paintings the maid had shown her before. As she was walking through the empty estate, a voice suddenly appeared. "Miss, are you out by yourself?" The little girl immediately froze. Then she ran outside, completely ignoring the ghost's concern. The next second, when the panting little girl ran out of the house, she noticed something was wrong. The sound of the ghost was gone. She had once again come to the dangerous place where she had fallen into the water last time. But the bold little girl was not afraid at all, preparing to see what kind of evil spirit her father was talking about. She came to an apple tree, looking at the surroundings at a loss. Then she looked up with a surprised expression. It was the boy who had saved her last time, sitting there. He was holding an apple from the tree. The little girl, covered in a cold sweat, stared at him blankly. It seemed very heartwarming. "Hey, are you lost again?" The boy's words instantly broke the silence. Hearing this, the little girl protested with a pout. "Who are you talking about? I'm not lost, and my name is not Hay." At this moment, the boy's face was full of amusement. Is that so? You don't even have a name. If I don't call you Hey, should I call you Chu Yushuan? With that, he picked up an apple and took a bite. At this moment, the little girl watched the boy eating the fruit, and her stomach growled in protest again. The girl was so embarrassed her toes curled up, but she still pretended to be calm. Then just call me whatever you want. Can you give me an apple too? But the boy directly refused the girl, saying that these were all his fruits. The little girl was instantly furious. After all, the surrounding area was all her father's territory. Then they can be mine too, because I have a good relationship with the Duke. At this moment, the little girl's mouth was slightly agape, not knowing what to say. Seeing this, the boy immediately covered his mouth to laugh at the girl. The slow-witted girl also realized that the boy was teasing her. Spread your skirt and take 3 steps forward. Although she was very angry, the little girl still followed his command. Apples fell into the little girl's arms with a whoosh. The boy also jumped down. He picked up an apple and handed it to the girl. Here, this apple is perfectly ripe. It looks the most delicious. Faced with the boy's sudden concern, the little girl immediately expressed her thanks. By the way, I forgot to ask you last time, what's your name? Hearing the boy's question, the little girl said awkwardly that she didn't have one of those yet. She turned to look at the boy. What about you, big brother, what's your name? The boy smiled and replied to her. Me? My name might be a bit long and hard to pronounce for you, so you can just call me Chien. I'm already very happy if you call me that. Hearing the boy's sudden words to her, the little girl was stunned, not knowing how to respond. As she lowered her head, wondering why it didn't sound like a name an imperial citizen should have, she found that the boy had already disappeared. This instantly left the girl stunned. A sudden shout made her jump. When she turned to look behind her, she found it was her father. What are you doing here alone? The girl got up and was about to answer her father's question when a servant hurriedly came over. Master, that Count Simond is here to visit you. Hearing this, the little girl's apple dropped to the ground. Her face was full of shock, recalling the past abuse. When Count Simond entered the ducal estate, he hypocritically hugged her, saying he had been looking for her all this time and that his food didn't taste good. The little girl, in response to his sudden concern, was stiff and terrified. Rushing up without any warning, what do you think you're doing? Hearing the Duke's questioning words, Count Simond didn't seem to care and hurriedly bowed to him respectfully. The Duke, however, had a cold expression and led them to the reception room. As soon as they sat down, the Count tried to curry favor with the Duke, but the Duke ignored him. My daughter seems to have had a rather unpleasant time at the Count's estate. Tell me the reason for this. Hearing the Duke's sudden question, Simond immediately said that there was no such thing, that the little girl had always been carefree at home. If it weren't for her running away from the Count's house on her own and getting kidnapped, she would still be playing happily now. The Duke didn't refute him after hearing this, just pointing out that the little girl was so old yet still uneducated. Her hands showed signs of rough labor, and her skin and hair looked like they had never been cared for. The cunning man shifted all the blame to the servants in the estate and the little girl. Hearing Simond's distortion of the truth, the little girl was about to expose him in anger. But Simond was looking at her with a cunning expression. Was what I just said correct, miss? The little girl flinched. She remembered being beaten and cursed by him at the Count's estate, leaving an indelible psychological scar. She lowered her head in fear, her face pale, and nodded, agreeing with what he had just said. She was terrified when she saw the man, because ever since she was little, the man had always either beaten or cursed her. Although she was back in her own home, when faced with his black and white twisting of the truth, she wanted to retort, but faced with the man's gaze, the girl was terrified. Her body was extremely stiff. She looked down at the ground, nodding her little head continuously. The Duke glanced at his daughter at the side and noticed her strange expression, but he didn't mean to blame her. He ordered a servant nearby to take the girl down to rest. When she returned to her room, the girl hid under the covers, her body trembling as bad memories of the past came flooding back. The fear that had been ingrained in her body and instincts since childhood was far greater than she had imagined. At the same time, the Count also finished his conversation with the Duke. 1 second he was humble, but the next second his face turned incredibly grim. In order not to be driven into a corner, he immediately made a ruthless decision. When night fell, the sleeping girl was awakened by a ghost who had something important to tell her. Although the girl's heart was still very resistant to being with them. But compared to the fear of seeing Count Simond during the day, this was nothing. And following the ghost out of the room, the girl was about to ask them what was going on. But she saw the ghost telling her to look ahead. The nervous girl accidentally made a sound. Count Simond, noticing the abnormality, hurriedly approached. Seeing that she was about to be discovered, the little girl trembled, not knowing how to escape this place of trouble. Just then, the ghost at the side used a special power, avoiding the crisis. When the morning sun filled the earth, the girl who had survived the ordeal was thinking about what happened last night. She suddenly remembered what the Count had mentioned last night and was startled, recalling that it was a deadly potion. Knowing that danger was coming, the little girl immediately stood up and hurriedly ran out the door. Her hurried footsteps instantly filled the quiet hall. Without bothering to knock, she burst into her father's room. Looking at his panting daughter, the Duke was about to show his concern when the little girl spoke up directly to warn him. "I have something to tell you. It's very important." Although he was very confused, the Duke still showed generosity and patience towards his daughter, telling her to say her piece. "Last night, Count Simon found our estate's chef and talked to him about a clear. The Count said that once it's done, he'll get the chef a position in the palace. So you have to be careful too." The Duke didn't respond directly after hearing this. Instead, he walked outside, reminding the confused girl to follow him. Faced with her father's reaction, the girl was hesitant, thinking he didn't believe her. But she still followed the Duke's command. When they arrived at the dining room, Count Simon still didn't know that his plot had been overheard by the girl and told to her father. He was chattering on, trying to curry favor with the Duke. But the Duke didn't respond to the Count. "You're right. I don't know if my daughter is trying to get my attention, but she lied to me first thing in the morning." Hearing this, the girl clenched her fists on her skirt, not understanding why her father would treat her this way. And Count Simon was shocked to hear this, shouting that it wasn't the girl's fault, but his heart was racing with nervousness. Just then, a servant also brought the food into the dining room. The girl clenched her arms, preparing to knock the food to the ground first. But the servant placed everything in front of Count Simon. He was very confused by this. The little girl also looked at her father in surprise. "So, to prove that my daughter is lying, please, Count, eat all of this breakfast that is said to be poisoned." Seeing the Count's face covered in cold sweat and showing no reaction, a large formation of knights also arrived. The terrified Count Simon still wanted to refuse the Duke's kind offer, saying he didn't like to eat these things. Seeing this scene, the little girl instantly knew that her father believed her. Filled with courage, "You're lying. Didn't you ask the chef to put a clear in the food?" "I'm not a liar." Count Simon immediately burst out cursing. But the Duke spoke up at the right time. "It seems you've also raised my daughter to be an ill-mannered little fool. Men, lock the Count in the dungeon. I will interrogate him personally. Also, find out which servants are connected to Count Simon's estate. Tie them up along with the chef involved in this matter." As the Duke finished speaking, the neat rows of knights immediately obeyed. They grabbed the terrified Count and dragged him away. The scumbag who had abused her was taken down by her father, but the kind-hearted little girl was not prepared to end him. She just asked her father to make him pay the corresponding price according to the law. The Duke calmly agreed to his daughter's request, but in his heart, he had already sentenced the Count to death. As the sun was about to set, the girl had just finished washing up and was preparing to rest, but the boy suddenly appeared in her room. The little girl was very curious about his arrival, not understanding why he would come to her now. She saw the boy extend his arm without a word. Although she was confused, the little girl still unconsciously placed her small hand in his. With a flash of dazzling light, the little girl found herself brought by Chi into a pitch-black environment, looking at the gloomy and dark prison around her. The little girl knew she had been brought to the dungeon. She was about to ask Chi and why he had brought her here, but he directly took the girl's hand and told her to walk forward with him. As they walked, they could hear faint words. As the voices became clearer, the little girl found that her father was actually here, interrogating Count Simon in the cell. The little girl immediately hid in a corner. "You, a criminal suspected of plotting to murder a duke and even intending to commit treason, are you still dreaming that those guys from the noble faction will come to save you?" Faced with the duke's questioning, Count Simon stared at the man before him, not knowing when he had committed treason. "Actually, whether you wanted to kill me or commit treason, it has nothing to do with me. But why did you bully my daughter? If you didn't have the confidence to take good care of her, then when I went to pick her up, you could have just given her back to me. I was too stupid. I trusted you just because you were my subordinate." Hearing this, the girl understood that her father had not forgotten or abandoned her. She had always held an important place in his heart. "Every time I went to pick her up, you said she was traveling or sick. I felt ashamed and couldn't face her, so I didn't doubt your excuses too much." Hearing this immediately triggered a strong protest from Count Simon, and the little girl was brought back to her bedroom by Chien. The girl was very confused by this. "You're crying. It's better not to watch then. Hearing Anne's reminder, the little girl also realized that tears had already soaked her eyes, and the boy tactfully stopped bothering the girl. In an instant, he was gone. Although she was annoyed that Sheehan had left her again without a word, the little girl couldn't do anything about it. She just plopped down on the bed, but the next second, she sat up abruptly, ready to stir up some trouble. As the sound of knocking filled the quiet night, the Duke looked forward with a cold sweat. "Dad, can I sleep with you?" The man was suddenly unsure whether to agree. "I can't sing lullabies." The little girl immediately replied, "It's okay. I'll sing for you." As late night fell, the bright moonlight shone on the father and daughter on the bed, looking so warm. When the next day came, the maids also learned that the young lady's past life was not beautiful and were very concerned about her, which made the girl very uncomfortable. At this time, the Duke sent someone to find his daughter. The little girl immediately followed the servant to his room, but she was suddenly startled. The room was filled with books, and the Duke was discussing something with his assistant. "You can sit over there and play for a while." Although she was puzzled by her father's mysterious actions, the little girl still sat on the sofa at the side, not understanding why her father had called her. Opalette, seeing her father looking at her, the baffled girl became even more baffled, not knowing what on earth he was talking about. "This one isn't great either." Bele, Piolia, Alpina, hearing their unfamiliar words. The little girl also knew that they were struggling to find a name for her. At this, the little girl let out a chuckle. But faced with her father's thoughtfulness, the little girl was filled with warmth. As time passed, the little girl also became sleepy. She fell asleep on the spot, looking at his sleeping daughter. The Duke immediately stood up and held the little girl in his arms, walking towards her bedroom. What a troublesome little girl. Although his words were full of disdain, they couldn't hide the Duke's concern for his daughter. Looking at the flowers outside the window, exuding their charm, the Duke couldn't help but think of the little girl's mother. After putting his daughter down, he gently stroked her hair. The man's cold face instantly bloomed like a flower. "Sweet dreams." Richette, down. Wind's grave. Although the Duke was not good at expressing his feelings, he still loved his daughter Richette very much. Just for a cold. The man was about to change the environment of the entire territory, just to make his daughter comfortable and at ease. Faced with the Duke's irrational behavior, his assistant hurriedly tried to persuade him, saying that this would cause big problems. But the Duke wouldn't listen. Even if it meant compensating for the losses of all the residents in the territory, he wanted to make the ducal territory a free play area for his daughter. After all, this was something he had wanted to do for a long time. Although her father's actions made Richette feel very warm, she had to stop him. Dad, can you just make our house a little warmer? I only play in the garden anyway." Although he was reluctant, the Duke still listened to his daughter and withdrew his magic. "Then if you want to leave the ducal estate, you must tell me in advance." Seeing her father staring at her intently, Richette thought he was a little angry and cautiously tugged at his clothes. Looking at his daughter, who seemed to have something to say, the man twitched the corner of his mouth. With a doting expression, he told his daughter not to worry. Richette immediately let out a sigh of relief and smiled at her father. A few days later, Richette was sitting there bored, practicing her drawing. On a whim, she wanted to learn something, and hurriedly ran out. Just then, the scenery outside the window caught her attention. The once snow-covered world was gone, and at this moment, the appearance of a butterfly instantly attracted her. She quickly reached out to catch it, but the next second, her foot slipped and she fell downstairs. At this critical moment, a tall figure caught the girl in his arms. Richette looked terrified. Just then, a familiar voice came from behind her. "Are you okay?" "I'm sorry. I was just trying to play a joke on you. I didn't expect you to get into danger." Seeing that it was Chi and who had saved her, the girl was very surprised. After all, she had felt that it was a much taller person who had saved her. Although she couldn't figure out what was wrong, when she thought about asking her father if he knew Chi-in, he said he had never heard of such a name. And after describing Chi-in's appearance in detail to her father, he was actually very angry. At that time, she had to give up and didn't dare to anger the Duke. "Were you the butterfly just now? You're not actually human, are you?" Faced with Richette's question, Chi-in didn't refute it. "Oh no, I've been discovered. I'm actually a spirit." And Richette was very dissatisfied with Chi-in's answer, which was like coaxing a child. But thinking that he had helped her many times and had no ill intentions, she didn't press the matter further. After all, everyone has their own secrets. Just then, Chi-in reached out his arm, wanting to take the bored Richette somewhere. Although she was hesitant, she still placed her hand in his. At the same time, a carriage was heading towards the ducal estate. Just then, the young man was suddenly startled, discovering that the estate outside the window was so different from the surrounding territories. Could it be that father made the estate like this? And Chi-in, who had accompanied Richette for a day, was also preparing to go back. Rachette smiled and said that she had a great time today. Just then, the maid's call interrupted them. She hurriedly left, not wanting to be discovered. Although she was very curious why he was here, the eldest and second young masters had returned to the estate, and Rachette needed to go immediately. When the closed door was opened, two young men were standing in front of the Duke. They looked as if they were cast from the same mold. This was Rachette's first meeting with her brothers. She had thought that the two with terrible personalities would dislike her very much. She nervously clenched her fists, not knowing how to break the ice and get closer to them. But the next second, the young man knelt on one knee and actively asked his sister, "You're so small. But even though you're so small, you have such big eyes." Faced with her brother's words, Rachette was stunned, not knowing how to respond. But the young man in front of her directly took her small hand. With a smile on his face, "Hello, I'm your eldest brother, Aiden. I really wanted you to come back. Welcome, truly." At this time, the young man at the side also leaned over to look at Rachette. He stared intently at the girl in front of him. Then, in Rachette's surprised expression, he lifted her high up, his face full of joy. "Sister, this is my sister, Abel." Speechless at his younger brother's excited actions. And Rachette also felt a wave of dizziness at this moment. But she was still very happy. After all, her brothers all liked her very much. "Big brother, did you see? She's so cute. It's nice to meet you. My name is Cameron Abel." Seeing his excited younger brother, he quickly reminded them that they were still in their father's room. Cameron immediately put Rachette down. Just then, their father also came over. He introduced the two of them to his daughter again and said that her third brother would be back at the ducal estate in a few days. Rachette quickly curtsied to the three of them. She was also very happy to see her brothers. This stunned the three of them. In order not to let his sons see his strange expression, the Duke immediately put on a cold face and ordered his sons not to go out if they had nothing to do. Just stay in the estate and accompany his daughter. The two could only nod in agreement. Seeing the oppressive atmosphere, Rachette was baffled. After all, her father had never treated her like this. The man, having disciplined his sons, didn't want to bother with them anymore and told them to take their sister out to bond. Relieved of his duty, Cameron, after hearing this, hurriedly prepared to take her out. And as she was leaving, Rachette looked at her old father with a smile. "Dad, I'll be back in a bit." The Duke quickly replied, telling her to have fun. At this, his two hopeless sons were completely baffled, in disbelief that the iceberg before them could have such a gentle expression. When the three of them arrived at the garden, looking at the changed environment, Cameron was amazed, feeling that their father was truly biased. But he wasn't angry. After all, he didn't need his father's concern. Then he whispered in his sister's ear, "Father is a bit fierce." Hearing this, Rachette could only break out in a cold sweat, not daring to recall. Seeing Aiden, whenever they mentioned their father, he would fall silent. Rachette also understood that their relationship was probably not very good. As they gradually walked deeper into the garden, they also talked about the scumbag who had abused Rachette. Cameron felt that just executing him so quickly was letting him off too easy. With his personality, he should have been sliced into 1,000 pieces in the Eastern Empire's way, or started with torture from below, where you could also triple exit. At this moment, Rachette was covered in a cold sweat, not knowing how to respond. Aiden quickly told him to shut his mouth and not to scare the child next to him. When they arrived at the glass greenhouse, Rachette suddenly thought of the boy who had always helped her and asked if the two of them knew him. But the two of them had no idea what this chi and she was talking about was. But when Rachette finished describing his appearance and characteristics, the two of them mistakenly thought it was an imaginary creature a child had made up and gently asked their sister to tell them how Chi played with her. Although she knew they were just trying to make her happy, Rachette still told her brothers about her experiences over the past few days. And when they heard that Chi had bullied her, Aiden's face darkened, and he wanted to sink him to the bottom of the lake. Cameron, however, wanted to cut him into pieces and bury him in a corner of the garden. This instantly made Rachette feel that her brother's love was truly incredible. The Duke was overjoyed by his daughter's return, but in front of his sons, he still had a cold expression. The oppressive atmosphere made Rachette extremely nervous. Only chewing on something could hide her unease. After returning to her room, she lay on the bed, thinking about how to ease their relationship. But she soon fell into a deep sleep. As late night fell, just then, Rosette opened her eyes, wanting something to drink. When she came to the living room, she found a light emanating from a nearby room. Just then, a chilly wind blew past. It scared Rosette so much she almost dropped her glass. But she couldn't resist her curiosity and opened the door. She was suddenly startled. A ghost was floating in midair, paying its respects to Rosette. I'm sorry for scaring you. I apologize for seeking you out so late at night. But would you come with me to a place? Everyone has prepared many things for you. Although she was terrified, Rosette agreed. Under the bright moonlight, the dazed little girl followed the ghost in front of her, creating a strange scene. The ghost then explained why it had sought her out. Today is the night of the full moon in October. On this day, the other ghost servants and I gain power. We can appear even without the master's permission. Everyone has been eagerly waiting, hoping to appear and greet you today. As the closed door opened, Rosette was brought to a magnificent banquet hall. The ghost bowed respectfully to her. Forgive us, miss. We are only introducing ourselves now. I am the head of the ghost servants, Annabella. Then, the surrounding ghosts also introduced themselves, and the theme of tonight's banquet began, welcoming Rosette back to this home. As soft music began to play, the chef brought out his signature dishes, while the surrounding ghosts danced. Rosette was very happy, but then Annabella asked her, "Does that dangerous person still approach you?" Hearing her mention a dangerous person, the dazed girl thought, "What thing? Are you talking about Chien?" As soon as the words left her mouth, the surrounding ghosts instantly fell silent. Annabella, in her anger, sparked with blue flames, looking incredibly eerie. That ferocious beast. He even told you his name. Saying this, she took Rosette's hand in hers, hoping she would stay away from that dangerous thing. But the door was thrown open. It's the middle of the night. What are you all doing? Bringing my daughter here at this hour. What exactly have you done? The surrounding ghosts were in an uproar, apologizing profusely. The man's face was so dark it looked like water could drip from it. Fortunately, Rosette spoke up, breaking the tension. "Dad, please don't blame them. They only did this to welcome me." Although he was still displeased, hearing his daughter's words, the Duke didn't pursue the matter further. He picked up his daughter, ready to go back and rest. Rosette could only reluctantly agree. He brought his daughter to his own room, gently telling her to go to sleep quickly, and he was about to go handle some unfinished business. But Rosette suddenly grabbed her father's arm. Before the Duke could react, she lightly kissed his cheek. Instantly, a blush appeared on the Duke's cold face. Rosette, at this point, didn't know how to face her father. She tightly covered her head, not daring to look at him. Why you should get to work and rest early. Looking at his shy daughter, the man, having come to his senses, didn't disturb her further. "All right, thank you, and sweet dreams to you too." Rosette had been fostered in another's home, which made her wary of everyone. But as time passed, she gradually accepted her new environment. She regained the sparkle a girl should have, and won over her old father. Seeing his daughter treat him this way, the cold-faced Duke responded the very next day. He made her strawberry pastries. This left his two sons completely stunned, unable to believe this was their always strict father. Just then, her third brother returned home. The first thing he said was that the girl was a little bean. Rosette felt as if she had been struck by lightning, feeling a strong sense of rejection. But the third brother ignored her protest, demanding that their father confirm her identity. Instantly, the Duke, who had just been happy, turned cold again. "Kalis, what's this? You come back from the tower and think you're all that? Go to your room and stay there. You're not to come out without my permission." Seeing that he had angered his father, the third brother could only obey and turn to leave. Before leaving, he shot a cold glance at the girl, leaving Rosette speechless. She didn't know why he had so much hostility towards her. After he left, the eldest and second brothers immediately said they would teach their younger brother a lesson. Rosette quickly said she didn't mind. Although his words were harsh, if you think from his perspective, what he said makes some sense. Besides, I don't want third brother to be reprimanded because of this. Otherwise, he would surely resent me. The three of them felt a pang of heartache that the young Rosette was so understanding. They held her tightly in their arms, regretting the Count's easy death and their decision at the time. As Rosette was bored, practicing her drawing, she couldn't help but think of her third brother's words from earlier and slumped down in frustration. She seemed so helpless. Although everyone in the Duke's residence adored the girl, it didn't make her forget what she had endured at the Count's house. As Rosette was about to lie down to rest, she suddenly thought of the magical being who had helped her. The boy, perhaps he can help me. But the next second, Rosette deflated with a sigh. She slid down weakly. After all, her brothers always thought he was something she had imagined. Just then, a knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. When the door opened, her eldest brother walked into the room. He was holding a book. It turned out he was worried about his sister's mood, so he came to read her story. Although the story was very cliché and dull, Rosette was still very happy. After Ai finished telling the story of the monster under the bed, Rosette was full of doubt, not understanding why monsters always stayed under the bed. Maybe it's because they can't receive a baptism. Baptism is something unique to this world. From the moment of birth, all life begins to undergo baptism. Only beings of noble status can avoid this rule, or things that are already dead. Seeing her brother suddenly try to scare her, Rosette felt a flicker of fear and shivered. Seeing his scared sister, Ai quickly apologized. "I'll forgive you this time. Thank you for reading me a story." Hearing Rosette's words of thanks, Ai gently stroked her head, saying emotionally, "Rosette, I'm really happy that you're back. I missed you. Can I come and read you stories like this sometimes in the future?" Rosette quickly agreed. As night fell, the girl lay in bed, thinking about what her brother had told her. Just as she was about to fall asleep, a sound suddenly came from under the bed. The girl's eyes snapped open, thinking she had just heard things. But just then, there was another noise from under the bed. A terrified Rosette quickly sat up. Not knowing how to deal with this strangeness, she prepared to take a look under the bed to confirm if something was really there. When she quietly looked down, she saw a pair of red eyes staring back at her. Rosette's eyes widened instantly, and she let out a scream. Her grown-up father and 3 older brothers, along with servants, accompanied her. Rosette had thought she was perfectly safe at home, but today she encountered something strange, which made her scream miserably. The Duke rushed to her room, thinking she was in danger. Taking a closer look, he saw Rosette with tears in her eyes, looking at him in terror. He couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. He then picked up his sobbing daughter. Her brothers also rushed over. After the Duke asked his daughter why she screamed, he had them flip the bed over and search carefully, but they found nothing wrong. There's a monster under the bed. There's a monster with eyes that glow red. Hearing Rosette's description, the air instantly froze. Well, actually, I was just reading Rosette a fairy tale. Maybe she dreamed about the monster from the story. Realizing his own son had scared his daughter, the Duke muttered under his breath, feeling the urge to beat him. Seeing he was about to scold Ai, Rosette quickly tugged on her father. "I was very happy that brother Ai read me a story, and you all came to see me. I'm not scared anymore. Especially you, little bean brother." Hearing his sister hold a grudge and mention him, the 3rd brother grumbled about wanting to leave the family. Ai also blamed himself, gently stroking her hair. "I definitely won't tell any more scary stories next time." The Duke, seeing him about to touch his daughter again, coldly threatened to take away his storytelling rights. To ease the tension between them, Rosette instantly thought of something. She hugged Ai's head and gave him a kiss, expressing her thanks. Instantly, a blush appeared on his face. The monster isn't Big Brother's fault. "Dad, if you scold Brother Ai, I'll never kiss you again." The Duke felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He coldly told Ai to choose a classic book next time. Seeing his father dote on the girl so much, the 3rd brother couldn't help but sigh. He then turned and left the room. Just then, the 2nd brother said he wanted to stay with the girl tonight. Ai was also afraid she would be scared alone and said he could also stay with Rosette. The Duke stared intently at his daughter at this obvious hint. Rosette had to refuse her brother's kind offer. "I want to sleep with Dad tonight. Dad is the best. If I sleep with him, I won't be scared at all." She then looked at her satisfied father, while her brothers looked disappointedly at the father and daughter. Lying in the Duke's room, although her family hadn't found anything strange earlier, Rosette felt very safe lying next to her father. As the bright sun shone on the great hall, Rosette was bored, flipping through a book. But the strange eyes from yesterday still left her with lingering fear. She then closed the book. Ignoring the maid's questions, she ran out. After all, if something strange was happening in the Duke's mansion, it must be related to the boy. In the empty glass greenhouse, Rosette's voice calling for Chien echoed, but he showed no sign of appearing, which frustrated Rosette. "If you don't come out, I'll go to the lake myself." Seeing Rosette trifle with her own life, the boy suddenly appeared with poetic flair, startling her so much she stumbled and almost fell. Fortunately, Chien grabbed her arm in time, stopping her from falling. "Why did you come looking for me this time?" At his question, Rosette became agitated. "I have something to ask you. Was that monster under my bed last night you?" Chien didn't hesitate at all. He smiled at the girl. "You're only just realizing? Although your reaction is a bit slow. I'm still very happy you recognized me." This made Rosette suspicious, not understanding why he would scare her. "Because I was a little angry. You actually said I was an imaginary friend." This made Rosette freeze. After all, she had only been muttering to herself in her room. But the next second, Chien moved closer to Rosette and cupped her face. "I clearly exist in this world for real. Can you feel it now? Looking into the boy's eyes, Rosette couldn't help but think of yesterday's strange occurrence. Just as she was about to make a sound, Kalis arrived. Hey, who let you come to the greenhouse? Did you get father's permission to be here? Chien retorted forcefully, telling the third brother not to meddle in other people's business. Hearing them argue, Rosette froze on the spot. After all, no one else knew Chien, but the third brother knew what he was. I hope you consider your own identity and situation before you act. Crown Prince. Hearing this, Rosette's eyes widened, feeling like her brain was about to short-circuit. The boy's identity was incredible. Rosette felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She was shocked he hadn't told her. After all, she had always thought the boy was a spirit. Rosette, I just love how cute and innocent you are. This made Rosette's eyes widen as she stared blankly at the boy before her. Cut the crap and get out. Seeing Kalis being so rude, Chien didn't want to deal with him anymore and prepared to take Rosette back to her room. Holding Chien's arm, Rosette thought back on her encounters with him. She didn't understand why everything was so strange. What on earth is going on? Chien smiled at her and then explained the reason. The lawless Duke Winds Gray, under the pretext of teaching magic, is holding the crown prince hostage in his home as a means to control imperial power. Are you interested in a story like that? Although she knew there must be other reasons, the girl didn't press further. She was just curious why no one had ever heard the name Chien. Of course, because I've only told you, Rosette. Anyway, I hope you'll think of it in a positive light. After all, as long as it makes you less afraid of me, I'll do anything. Seeing him treat her so specially, Rosette couldn't help but feel confused. Why was it so strange? Just as she was pondering the question, she ran into her brother, who had a shocked look on his face. So, that imaginary friend you mentioned before? No, the friend you were talking about is the Crown Prince? Then, the second brother pulled Rosette in front of him. He was polite to Chien on the surface, but inwardly he was very resistant to him. Just then, Rosette saw her father and immediately called out. When the Duke saw the scene before him, he was also stunned. Then his eyes narrowed. He walked towards his daughter. Your Highness, the Crown Prince. You're here too. As it happens, Ai is returning to the palace tomorrow. You can escort him on the way. Regarding the Duke's protective behavior, Chien wasn't surprised. Oh, you're going back so soon? What a shame. I just managed to become good friends with Rosette. Rosette's eyes widened. The atmosphere became incredibly strange. All right, Rosette, it's time for your tea and snacks. Let's go. Hearing her father wanting to take her back, Rosette didn't want the relationship between her friend and her family to be so stiff. She smiled and invited everyone to join. Unable to refuse his daughter, everyone had no choice but to sit together and eat quietly. To ease the tension, Rosette suddenly stood up. Give me all the cake. I'll divide it. After dividing the cake, Rosette first gave a piece to her tool-like father, then to Ai and Mealy. But hearing that his sister would eat for him, he had to accept her kindness. Returning to her seat, Rosette was very pleased with her actions. After all, everyone was no longer as quiet as before. After finishing the snacks, Chien found the girl again and asked her how she was feeling. The smile on Rosette's face was the best answer, but she still felt that something was not right about Chien's identity as a friend. There are many mysterious things in the world, as countless as the guardian stars. Hearing this, Rosette couldn't help but remember what the ghost had told her, to remember his eyes. So are your pupils also because of a blessing? I think your eyes look beautiful when they sparkle with red light, just like gems. But the next second, she saw Chien's expression freeze. Rosette, you can see the red light sparkling in my eyes? Rosette instantly regretted asking such a stupid question. She looked at the calm boy at a loss, feeling incoherently that she was doomed. What did I just say? Oh, right. I said your eyes are shiny and beautiful. Fortunately, Chien didn't press the matter, knowing she must have a secret. Yes, you must have seen it wrong. Come to think of it, there's something I haven't said to you yet. Rosette, thank you for being my friend. Let's continue to get along well in the future. Although his words were very calm, his red eyes looked incredibly strange. The emperor of this country, when meeting the Duke in private, would only whimper. Rosette, who had come with her father to see the world, was instantly stunned, unable to believe this person held such immense power. The three people next to her were not surprised at all. Chien, as the crown prince, even told him to have some dignity, which immediately provoked the emperor's displeasure. Watching the two of them talk intimately, the young man called out to the girl beside him, wanting to take her out to connect. Although she was hesitant, Rosette still went out with him and asked Chien why his father was so strange. As the son of a maid, he became the emperor and made his own son the crown prince. All this good fortune was secured for him by Duke Winds Gray. So naturally, he relies on your father for everything. He then asked Rosette if she found it amazing. Rosette just smiled and didn't respond. Then he ended the topic. The two of them walked leisurely through the bustling hall. Just then, Rosette saw a portrait of a blond man hanging on the wall and couldn't help but wonder who that nobody was. But Qian's face was full of smiles, and the words he spoke were incredibly strange. "What are you talking about? Isn't that me?" This instantly made Rosette feel a trace of doubt. She quickly looked back. "Take a closer look. Do you still not recognize me? Is the me in your eyes completely different from that painting? Rosette, can you see what I look like now? I wasn't sure at first. Now I realize. You can actually see my true form." Instantly, fear filled Rosette's young heart. She wanted to flee in a panic. She cried out for her family to come and save her. It seemed as if the heavens heard her cries. She bumped into Kalis. "Little Bean, where did you go? Father is looking for you. Hey, pull yourself together." Having come to her senses, Rosette immediately hid behind her brother, begging him to help her. Not understanding what had happened to his sister, Kalis was about to ask her the reason. Qian arrived at that moment. "I'm sorry, Rosette. Was my joke too much?" Rosette didn't answer his question, just stared with wide, terrified eyes. She understood why. After she described the boy's features, her family thought he was something she had imagined. Because in their eyes, Qian looked different, and Qian was not human at all. She screamed in terror for him not to come closer. Although confused as to why his sister was so resistant to the boy, Kalis didn't want to ask for the reason. "Your Highness, the Crown Prince, how dare you bully someone from our Duke Winsgree's household? And you, are you just going to let him bully you like a fool?" Seeing that Rosette now only felt resistance towards him, Qian decided to leave. "It seems we can't make up today. Then let's meet again next time. I promise that whenever you think of me, I will come find you. I'll be going now." Rosette watched the boy turn and leave. Feeling emboldened, Rosette shouted that they would never see each other again. Then she collapsed weakly to the ground. Seeing his sister still in shock, Kalis helplessly prepared to pull her up. But the terrified Rosette had no strength at all. After some deep thought from Kalis, he had no choice but to kneel on one knee, preparing to carry the little bean he always disliked. After lifting his sister onto his back, Kalis grumbled, telling her not to tell anyone about this, or he'd make her take out his trash. Hearing this, Rosette quickly promised she wouldn't tell. Then she asked Kalis if he knew the Crown Prince's real name, but she received the answer that he didn't know either. Just then, Mealy stared in shock at his little brother carrying their sister. "My leg hurts, so third brother is carrying me." Then she was surprised to find her eldest brother was also here. It turned out their assembly time was postponed, so he could come home to be with the girl. He then picked up his sister, making Rosette so happy that she forgot the strange encounter from just moments ago. The next second, the Duke snatched Rosette away. In her surprised gaze, he expressionlessly stated that they were returning to the residence. Seeing her father care for her so much, Rosette instantly felt a sense of security. "By the way, Dad, do you know what the Crown Prince's name is?" The Duke, just like Kalis, did not know his name. He told his daughter that the names of the royal family are not easily told to others, to prevent people from calling the rulers by their names directly. Although her father's answer was logical, Rosette, back at home, still felt that this matter was strange. After all, her eldest and second brothers also didn't know the Crown Prince's name and seemed completely unconcerned. And the books didn't mention the reason her father had given. Unwilling to give up, Rosette drew Qian as she saw him on a piece of paper, along with her father and brothers, preparing to confirm his identity once more. Just then, Rosette was shocked to realize that night had fallen, but the maids had not come to remind her to go to sleep. When she tried to summon a maid to her room, no one came. Curious, she opened the door and went to the silent hall. As she was feeling confused, she saw a man collapsed on the floor. There was a pool of blood beneath him. He weakly told Rosette to leave quickly. The girl's face instantly turned pale, her heart filled with fear. The Duke, the strongest villain, possessed immense power. But a group of people had broken through the barrier and invaded his home. When the unsuspecting girl came to the living room, she saw a man collapsed on the floor with a pool of blood beneath him, weakly telling her to leave quickly. Rosette covered her mouth in disbelief, not understanding what had happened. Just then, a ghost's voice sounded in her ear, telling her to go find her father quickly and not to stay in this dangerous place. Rosette obediently prepared to go. But the next second, she saw that Kalis's guards were all dead. Worried that something had happened to her little bean brother, Rosette rushed towards his room. When she opened the door, a masked man was holding a dagger, about to stab the boy. In a moment of desperation, Rosette grabbed a nearby vase and smashed it hard on the man's attacking arm. Feeling himself freed from the man's grip and seeing Rosette in his room, Kalis urgently told her to go find their father, but the man grabbed him by the neck. He gave him a hard slap across the face. Seeing her brother get hit, Rosette clutched her head in shock. After letting go of Kalis, the masked man slowly walked towards her. Looking at the young girl, the masked man was about to finish her off. In the nick of time, the girl let out a frightened cry. Rosette's eyes widened instantly. Specks of blood landed on her cheek, and the man vanished at that moment. A piece of paper slowly floated to the ground. In the quiet room, Kalis's heavy breathing could be heard. He trembled as he watched his sister approach, then she covered his eyes. Although Rosette's heart was filled with a fearful desire to escape, she continued to comfort her brother in her arms, telling him not to be afraid. He seems to have fainted. Kids are so fragile, can't take any excitement. A voice suddenly interrupted Rosette's fearful thoughts. But the next second, her face turned pale, shocked that someone else was still here. I saved you, and you're not even going to say thank you? You can turn around now. Oh, are you afraid of blood? As the person finished speaking, the pungent smell of blood instantly vanished. Realizing the voice behind her was very familiar, Rosette looked back in confusion, only to see Chien standing in the moonlight, holding a large claw. Seeing the bloodstains on it, Rosette's eyes widened in terror again. He quickly dispelled the magic. Rosette's body trembled as she wondered why he was here. You were in danger. How could I not come to save you? Didn't I promise you? Whenever you think of me, I will always come to you. Although the boy's words were heartwarming, Rosette couldn't help but step back, her voice trembling as she asked what he was going to do. I just want to save you. Aren't we friends? Seeing the boy approach her, the girl's face turned pale as she instantly understood what he was. You're a Shinhung, aren't you? Hearing her words, Chien smiled like a flower. You finally figured it out. Now, you won't think of me as something that doesn't exist anymore. At least, I hope you don't think of me that way. The bright moonlight was filled with a holy aura, but the young man with long black hair seemed so vast. After all, humans like you call me the king of Shinhung. The strongest evil spirit left by the gods was extremely fond of the little girl. Whenever Rosette called his name in her heart, Chien would appear in time to shelter her from the storm. But the girl felt no gratitude at all. She was still very afraid of him, not understanding why this terrifying monster had set its sights on her. Tears welled up in her trembling eyes. She just wanted to go home to her dad, just as she stumbled and was about to fall. A strong arm supported her body. Coming to her senses, the girl pushed him away in rejection, wanting to maintain a distance of 88 meters. Why are you so scared? There's nothing left to be afraid of. That intruder died at my hands. Your family members are all safe. Are you hurt? At this point, Chien didn't realize he was the problem and was still questioning Rosette. Don't come any closer. Go away. Instantly, Chien understood the source of her fear. He slowly stepped back. Then I'll stay here. Is it okay if I keep my distance from you? Seeing him being so obedient, Rosette couldn't help but nod her head. Amidst her fear, she felt a bit of curiosity. What happened to the real crown prince? Hearing this, Chien pursed his lips. He said that he had passed away a few years ago, and as he was dying, he made a wish to Chien, who was strolling nearby. I don't know if it was to protect the precarious royal family or for his weak father. In any case, he asked me to continue living in his place, so I agreed to replace him. Because this is a formal contract with his permission, everyone sees me as him, except for you. Hearing this, Rosette couldn't help but hesitate, wondering why she received such special treatment. After learning that the crown prince's life was not taken by Chien, Rosette instinctively was still very wary of him. What do you want from me? Why do you say you want to be friends with me? Is it because I recognized your true form? If that's the case, I'll pretend I don't know. Before Rosette could finish, Chien interrupted her. Rosette, it's not because of that. As he spoke, the man reached out and touched the girl's cheek. I'm actually very happy that you recognized me. So, please continue to be my good friend in the future, the form that no one else can see. Only you. Watching Rosette's terrified eyes widen, her body trembling like a doll, Chien turned away from her. Then he performed magic right before the girl's eyes. He turned into a boy. You should be used to this form, right? Because this form is not much different from my true form. I've always appeared like this in front of you. But seeing the girl just staring at him without answering his question, Chien decided to scare her a little. He performed magic again. He turned into butterflies that fluttered around the girl. But this unexpectedly triggered bad memories for Rosette, her body trembling. It seems you still like me best in this form. If I use other forms, will you be scared too? I'll listen to you. So, can you please look at me? At Chien's almost pleading words, Rosette opened her eyes and stared blankly at him. Although she knew the smiling boy before her meant her no harm, in the face of his immense power, Rosette had no room to resist. She was confused, wondering why he treated her this way. She then told Chien not to change forms back and forth. After he agreed, Rosette hesitantly asked the question in her heart. As long as I'm friends with you, you won't do anything to harm me? Chien had no intention of harming her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have saved her from danger just now. He then sat down next to Rosette, just talking together, enjoying time together. Being in the same space is enough for me. I like cute little children, so I will always protect you in the future. Saying this, he stroked Rosette's hair, preparing to leave amidst her hesitant gaze. Even if you don't want to talk to me right now, I can understand. Until the next time you want to see me, I won't bother you. But when we meet next time, I'll assume you're not afraid of me anymore. I hope to see you again soon. Saying this, he performed magic and slowly disappeared in the moonlight. Watching the boy leave again, Rosette, with her hands clasped, felt an inexplicable emotion in her heart. The Duke's youngest child was fostered in the Count's home from a young age, but the Count unexpectedly abused and berated her. He tormented her wantonly every day. After being rescued by her father from an auction, she thought that with her father's protection and care, she could live happily ever after. But a group of intruders broke into the Duke's residence, shattering the peace, intending to end her life. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Chien, transformed from the king of Shinung, saved her and revealed his identity. After Chien left the room, the Duke, having dealt with the assassins, hurried to their location, seeing Rosette crying her eyes out. Although he was puzzled as to why his unprotected daughter had not been harmed, the man was now filled with guilt. Waking up the next day, he had the bodies of the knights and servants collected and held a simple funeral. He then took his 2 sons to deal with the enemies, leaving his 3rd son and daughter sitting awkwardly on the sofa, not knowing what to say. But Rosette was relieved that her family didn't ask how she was saved. Thinking of the boy who saved her, she couldn't help but miss him a little. But the thought of the psychological trauma he left her with last night made Rosette grip her skirt tightly in fear. Conflicting emotions filled her mind. She shook her head in frustration. Hey, why did you do something so bold last night? The sudden question broke Rosette's train of thought. She looked at her brother in confusion, not understanding what he was talking about. Because you were in danger then. Before he could finish, Kalis shouted angrily, asking why his sister was so disobedient. She had not yet received the blessing of the Holy Spirit and shouldn't have disregarded her own safety to save him by hitting last night's scumbag with a vase. Hearing this, Rosette lowered her head in disappointment, not daring to look at the boy beside her. Seeing his sister not daring to speak, Kalis angrily asked why she saved him. After all, with his blessing of regeneration, he wasn't afraid. But in Rosette's heart, she already considered them the most important things in her life. Hearing his sister's heartfelt words, Kalis was at a loss for how to respond. Although you might not accept me. Before Rosette could finish, Kalis interrupted her again, saying that he didn't dislike her, but was afraid that others would use such tricks against their family. That's why he was wary of the girl. Oh, brother, since you don't dislike me, that means you like me. Seeing his happy sister, Kalis, who had just expressed his feelings, was speechless. Isn't that so? Or do you hate me? But you're still grateful to me, right? Even though you have a blessing, you can't use it. It was me who saved the girl in danger. Hearing this, an embarrassed Kalis had to thank his sister. This made Rosette's face bloom with a smile. She wondered what Kalis's reaction would be when she gave him her artwork. As the bright sun shone on the land, a doctor was examining Rosette. When the Duke asked what was wrong with his daughter, the doctor couldn't say for sure. Rosette might have been severely traumatized that night. The priority for the family was to help her stabilize her emotions. Hearing this, the Duke picked up his daughter and asked if she had slept well last night. But Rosette didn't know how to answer her father. After all, since that day, she would relive the events of that night over and over in her dreams. Sometimes Kalis would die, sometimes she would, and there were also the scolding voices of irrelevant people. After learning about his daughter's condition, the Duke immediately took action. He stayed with her every night to help her feel safe. The usually cold-faced Duke even sang a lullaby. Although her father's singing wasn't very good, it temporarily calmed Rosette's uneasy heart. As the night deepened, the room gradually fell silent, and in her dream, Rosette heard some strange words this time. Before she could respond, she was suddenly startled awake. Tears welled up in her eyes. An inexplicable heartache washed over her, seeing that her father was already asleep. The girl quietly got up and went out under the bright night sky. She couldn't help but think of the boy who had always helped her. She wanted to see him. As Rosette called out the boy's name over and over in her heart, when she opened her eyes again, the boy was already in front of her. "I'm here. Rosette, long time no see, my little one." His terrifying power obeyed the command of a 7-year-old girl. Even if she told him to get lost, he would shamelessly stick around. He had thought that Rosette wouldn't pay him much attention for a while, but the very next day, the bored girl summoned him to her home. When the boy eagerly came to see her, Rosette was very displeased with what he brought. Seeing the unhappy girl, Chien lowered his head sadly. But the next second, Rosette stepped back in fear and asked what else he had brought. "It's the Shinhung. You call me the king of Shinhung precisely because the Shinhung always follow me." With a thud, the apple in the girl's hand fell. Because the barrier her father had spent 81 days setting up was so easily breached, she couldn't help but be in awe of the boy's power. Even though Rosette had already accepted the boy in her heart, when Chien stood before her, the fear in her heart couldn't help but resurface. "Last time, you said you wanted to be friends with me. Does that still count?" Although he was puzzled why she would ask this question, Chien didn't hesitate to give a positive response. "Then, make a deal with me. Friends should be honest with each other. So you must promise me that in the future, even if you have an unavoidable reason, you will not harm the people around me. Then I will be your friend." Although Rosette's question had touched the boy's bottom line, Chien still smiled brightly. "All right, I'll listen to you in everything. So Rosette, don't be afraid of me anymore. Whenever you call me, I will always be there for you, listen to your thoughts, and take care of you. And I will always listen to you. So please don't despise me. And you don't have to be so nice to me. You can bully me, and you can order me around as you please." At this moment, Rosette's thoughts were already in turmoil from Chien's words. She gripped her skirt tightly, not knowing whether to believe him. Just then, her father suddenly woke up and anxiously called out his daughter's name. Before either of them could react, the man had already opened the door. Seeing the boy in front of him, he didn't understand why he was here. Just as Rosette was nervously about to explain, Chien had already used his magic first, freezing the Duke in place. Rosette was startled and frantically asked Chien what he was doing. As expected of someone who has received the highest protection of the heart from the Almighty Creator, even though I put everyone in the residence to sleep, he was still able to wake up on his own. Saying this, Chien slowly floated up, preparing to leave the Duke's residence. "If your family ever stops making you happy, you must tell me. I will help you eat them all." At the boy's contradictory words, the girl fearfully stated that he had already promised. No matter how her family treated her, she would not change her mind. Looking at the girl before him, Chien hesitated, not knowing how to answer. But he still agreed, relieved. "All right, Rosette, we'll meet again next time." With that, he turned into a wisp of black smoke and disappeared before the girl's eyes. At Chien's sudden departure, Rosette felt inexplicably sad. At that moment, the sound of a door opening came from behind her. The Duke came to his daughter's side, wondering why she was out of her room alone so late at night. Rosette felt a sense of relief that her father had forgotten the scene he had just witnessed. I had a nightmare, so I wanted to come out for some fresh air. I'm sorry for disturbing your rest." Before Rosette could finish speaking, the Duke pulled her into his arms, saying she could do as she pleased in front of him, but he hoped she wouldn't go out alone at night anymore. After all, it would make him worry. Having fostered his daughter in his subordinate's home, the man never expected him to betray him, causing the young girl's childhood to be overshadowed. After rescuing his daughter from the auction, although he was not good at expressing his feelings, in order to make up for his daughter's lost childhood, Duke Windsgray decided to hold a grand birthday banquet for her. Rosette, who had never celebrated a birthday in her past or present life, was stunned. She had completely forgotten about it. She looked at her father with complicated feelings. When she heard that the birthday banquet would be held at the Imperial Palace along with the awakening ceremony, Rosette was startled. Her 3 brothers, however, looked calm, as if this was a common occurrence for them. Rosette helplessly accepted this fact. "If I go to the Imperial Palace, I'll definitely see Chien." To prepare a gift for their sister, the 3 of them decided to take Rosette for a stroll around the capital. After getting their father's permission, the man had wanted to go too, but the butler informed him that he had matters to attend to. Soon after, Rosette followed her brothers to the noisy market. The lively atmosphere made the girl very happy. They bought a large pile of gifts. In a subsequent conversation, Rosette learned that her birthday banquet would be held the day after the Emperor's birthday ball. The 3 great families of the Empire would all attend. The Windsgray of the North, the Bezco of the West, and the Ejigil of the South. And the young master of Ejigil is the male lead of this world. The female lead is a maid from the Bezco Palace. The Windsgrave ducal family are the villains who obstruct the male and female leads. Rosette became curious. In the original story's description, the young master of Ajigil was close to her age. She wanted to learn more about this boy who would later oppose her father and get on good terms with him beforehand. But her brother's answers left her stunned. You have your brothers for company. Why do you need to make friends? That's right. Are friends that important? Yeah. Can't your brothers do the things you do with friends with you? After saying that, Kalis directly picked up his sister. His strange logic made her break out in a cold sweat. After a while, the three of them brought Rosette to an open space. They prepared to demonstrate their respective blessing abilities. The blessing IE received was physical strength dozens of times stronger than an ordinary person's. He found a huge rock, and with just a light punch, the stone shattered into pieces. Kalis's blessing was the 1,000 eyes he received from the Guardian's heart. With just one look, he could control the opponent's movements. This also caused a passerby to suffer, as Kalis controlled his body. Rosette, who witnessed this scene, felt it was magical. She wanted her little bean brother to demonstrate his blessing ability, but the boy was reluctant. Rosette didn't push him too hard. At this time, a knight also reminded them that the sun was about to set, so everyone prepared to take one last look around. They then went to a toy store, seeing the three of them discussing which toy was more suitable for her. The exhausted Rosette asked her maid to take her to the gift area to rest, but she didn't notice someone approaching from behind. A large hand had already clamped over her mouth, and she instantly fell unconscious.